Hello, this is Frank Falvey with Frank Presents, and today it's my great privilege and honor to have Michael Videira here with us. Michael, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Mike, there is a special override ballot election on June 11th. It will be happening at the Franklin High School Gymnasium from 6 to 8. And you represent a point of view of a vote no on this ballot question, and a committee that you're part of on why we should vote no. So for educational purposes and purposes of just leading a discussion, which isn't happening, does not seem to be any forums available to discuss or much literature outside for people to read or understand. Can you bring us up to date on what's happening?
Sure. So the town of Franklin has a deficit in their operating budget, and they are looking for an additional $6.8 million above and beyond what their typical tax levy increases allow for. So in a normal year, the increase in their tax levy can only increase by 2.5%, and that would not cover the operating deficit that they're currently under. And so they're looking for this override so that they can increase that tax levy by an additional $6.8 million. And that would mean an increase in everybody that lives in Franklin's property tax to cover that additional $6.8 million.
And it's not a one-year override, and it's not like a capital building exclusion. It stays with us forever unless there's a vote to lower the tax amount.
That's correct. That's correct.
So we're looking at 6.8 million, which is in itself about 7% or 7.5%, but added to the 2.5% that they can automatically have every year anyways. So we're looking at about 10%.
Yeah, it looks to be about 10% when you include the 2.5% that they can do each year, plus the override amount. And you're right, it's an increase in your fiscal year 25 taxes, but it's also increasing that tax levy base for every year thereafter. And so that 2.5% gets calculated on a higher base going forward with the 2.5%.
Yeah. The thing that you have had vote no on this question is a what do you call it?
A calculator?
A calculator.
Yeah. So we have the calculator on. So votenofranklin.com has a calculator that does our best guess as to what total increases would look like for real estate tax and utilities. And that's something that we were struggling to calculate ourselves as a family. I'm married, I have 4 kids in Franklin, and we are certainly on a tight budget these days, as I'm sure a lot of people are. And the way that it's being presented to the citizens of Franklin is that this is a $50 a month increase, or approximately $400 to $500 per year. And so what that is not including is the additional increases to your utilities and other services that you have to pay for in Franklin.
And how much would you anticipate that to be increasing?
So it depends on your water usage and your property's assessed value. And so if you go to votenofranklin.com, what you'll be able to do is put in your property's assessed value, whatever the town has that at, your water usage per quarter, and then answer if you have town sewer or town water. And so for a $650,000 home in Franklin, which is about the median valued home in Franklin, actually have it here, so I'll take a quick peek at it. So before the override, we estimate that you're going to have an increase in taxes and utilities of about $573 per year. And before the override. And then in addition to that, with the override would cost you approximately $552. So that annual increase is $1,100, over $1,100.
And roughly in some round numbers, 10% or a little higher than 10% is going to be the cost. Now, I want to alert voters, you can also go to the town website, and they have a calculator. But their calculator, you need to be very aware, is only on the $6.8 million. It does not include the 2.5% automatic. It does not include the increases in water, trash, or other services.
Right.
So when you look at the information they have, if you look at it, you need to consider it is only for the $6.8 million. Going back to why we're having this vote, it seems to me that COVID is the culprit, and that during COVID, the town side of the budget only included the 2.5%, and they spent the money that they got from COVID, as I understand it, for one-time capital expenditures.
Sure.
So on the town side, it's not appearing, at least in this fiscal year, to be the problem. The problem seems to be on the school budget side, that they spent the money for operating and not one-time expenses. And so 6.5 million is going to the schools. And I think that gives a basis for people that have kids in schools to say, oh yeah, let's keep the same expenditures up. Let's not make any cuts because we have to go back to pre-COVID. And so people like you that have a family that are struggling, people like me that are on fixed income and have been for a number of years, and our houses are over-assessed to begin with, makes for individual problems that, if the override passes, are really going to change the nature of who's living in Franklin. Have I summarized some of that correctly?
Yeah, I think what the override is representing is a tax for the younger generations, right? Those families that have kids in schools. And I think that Vote No Franklin is a voice for the older generations that have been here several years, several decades even, no longer have kids in schools, that would like to stay in their homes in Franklin and are on fixed incomes, like you said. And they can't afford to have their property taxes increased any further than they've already have been. And so I think that gets lost in a lot of this. There isn't a voice for those older generations. And I think that if we continue down this road, we had, as you mentioned, increases in the operating budget of the schools in town. But if you look at overall enrollments in the schools, it's steadily decreased over the past 5 to 10 years. And so it just seems as though we're continuing to increase our operating costs without the increase in revenue that's coming in from the taxes, and that's where we are today, is we need this additional override to cover those costs.
One of the other interesting things is we have a tri-county school here in Franklin that a lot of Franklin high schoolers go to. And we have one of the largest proportions of students, so we have one of the largest portions of not only the school that the override that was just passed to build a new school, a new tri-county, but we have a very large increase in the operational cost of that school. A school that has one school, a superintendent, probably an assistant to the superintendent, and a principal. Uh, there is no check and balance because the towns appoint someone from the town to represent them as the governing body, or like the school committee. There's no elected school committee for Tri-County. So Tri-County seems, in my opinion, to get away with increases that no one even is aware of that affect our town particularly because we have so many students there.
Yeah, so we burden a higher percentage of that debt exclusion.
Right.
And so that is one of the additional line items on the calculator is the tri-county debt exclusion. And for a $650,000 home in Franklin, that's an additional $170 almost per year that you have to factor in. And so I think there's the tri-county, there's also the phosphorus control plan. This is a federally mandated plan that is about $30 million over the next 5 years that we do not currently have funding for. So that's,
and is that a lot tied in because the Charles River goes through Franklin?
I'm not positive on that one.
Okay.
Yeah. But these are, additional costs that are coming down the pike that are still unknown. So when I give, the numbers I just mentioned, that does not include this phosphorus control plan. That does not include the police station that we're discussing about building in the next few years as well. And so, again, trying to give a overall picture of the cost today, the cost next year, and the potential increase in costs over the next few years, so everyone can make an educated decision on if this is the right for their family.
The group that is proposing or would like to see the 6.8 million has been working almost a year, I would say, in trying to put this together and trying to get some numbers and actively working to promote the idea of an override. And it seems at the very last moment that the town council in this group of individuals in the school committee have kind of worked together to put together a package that is favorable to them, but also favorable to when we're going to vote on it. Because it has been practically, I would say, less than 2 months that any reality about this package coming and being on the ballot even came up. And so they seem to be working to an advantage of putting this question in the best time frame to vote it, with less time for information and discussion about it to be talked about. It really seems like at the last moment there was a close working relationship with the town council, and they even refused to do what the state does, which is to send out to every citizen of Franklin a why you should vote for the override, and an opposition point of view why you shouldn't vote for the override. So, they seem not to want any information out for the citizens to review and understand. Am I going overboard in my assessment of what they're doing?
No, I think your assessment's the same one that we came to, is that there was no information being put out about the opposition to the override. And so that was the essence of Vote No Franklin, is that we're hearing from a lot of people that this was not something they wanted, but yet they didn't have a voice. And so we created that committee to put information out. And mainly, back to your point about the election being on June 11th, is that there is a lot of information that has to be assessed with this. And again, with everything that goes into calculating your taxes, not just for the override, but in addition to the utilities and everything else, is that people should have enough time to assess whether they can afford this. And so that's one of the pillars that we stand on, is this should be voted on in the normal general election in November, which allows for enough time for citizens to understand exactly how much this is going to cost them. Because again, they would have no idea if it wasn't for Vote No Franklin assessing all the other increases happening in addition to the override.
And the fact that, let me regather my thought for a minute. I just lost it.
Well, I think you had mentioned about how town council and school committee seems to be on one side of the fence here.
Yeah, that it seems that they're trying to, the town council, the superintendent of schools, are not out there with forums and to explain why this override and to answer questions. There doesn't seem to be, our program here is the first one on Franklin Public Access TV that is being recorded. I don't know of any other one. And I don't know of although I have extended invitations for individuals to come on the program and talk, as of this point, no one has accepted yet that invitation. So it seems that we are only being presented one side. And now I think we're beginning to see some signs go up and other indications that people aren't as happy. One of my deep concerns is the nature of who Franklin is as a town. And if this override passes, it seems like we are saying, if you have money, live in Franklin and we'll give you the best of everything we can. It's going to cost you money, some money, but you're already wealthy. You already have probably a lot of Franklin people that live here have a lot of money, and that's why the prices of the homes are really being skyrocketed. So are we on the verge of eliminating the economic diversity of the town of Franklin and only creating it as a Dover or as a Lexington or a Concord? I mean, does Franklin want to move into that upper category of the wealth, and what type of wealth remains in Franklin? And it appears that Franklin only wants people that are in the very high income, and too bad about the others. Whatever is going to happen, they can move out, they can go to nursing homes, they can get rid of their property, or if they're like you or other individuals, just having a hard time breaking even, having a hard time with the cost of inflation in Franklin. It seems like people really don't care about you.
Yeah, it's sad. There's more to this town than just families with kids in the education system. And so, one of the things that they mention as a saving grace, I guess, is that, well, Frank, you've been here a long time. Property values have gone up, so you have a lot more equity in your home. So that's useful for someone maybe who's thinking about selling their home and moving or downsizing or moving to a different home. But there's plenty of families that are older that want to stay in their home that they've been in for the past several decades.
Yeah, and they can't sell their home. I mean, yeah, I have a lot of equity, like all equity, right? But if I ever sell the home, right, I can't afford long-term care. I can't afford a nursing home. Okay, one of the things that allow me to live in Franklin is that the home is paid for.
Mm-hmm.
If I have to sell it, I'm up the creek. If my wife or I have to go to a nursing home, there's no money. You know, there's no money to pay for that.
Yeah.
So, but if people want to have signs or pick up signs or look on Vote No Franklin, how do they do that?
Yeah, so we have a website, it's votenofranklin.com. And so you can go on the website, you can request a sign, you can volunteer, you can donate. There's a number of different things, action items that you can go on there and request. And for anybody that is using the calculator, if you do find there's a mistake or we can improve it in any way, please let us know. That's something that we're trying to say is that this calculator is not perfect, but from what we can tell, there's nothing else out there that's doing anything similar to it or even trying to do that. And so we're open to ways to make it better, to improve it, to correct it. So
one of the ways I think you could make it better is where you put in the 650,000. Mm-hmm. That appears to be a little unclear that you want people to put in their assessment, mm-hmm. the assessment for their home, for them to understand what the effect would be. You just don't put in 650,000. You go to your tax bill and you look at what your assessment is.
That's right.
And you enter that amount into the calculator.
Yes. Yeah, it's based off your own assessed property value. So it should be on your tax bill. Or if you're having trouble locating your tax bill, you can call the town, either the assessor's office or even just start at the town clerk's office, and they can point you in the right direction to get you that assessed value. Same thing with the water usage. You want to put in your own water usage per quarter. And so, my family used 22, I think it's cubic feet or whatever the measurement is. So you want to put in your own per quarter usage on that. So it calculates what your increase is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the other things that you would like to bring up?
Well, again, I think this is a community effort. And so, whether you're for or against the override on June 11th, I think we're all trying to just help each other out. And so, we are a voice for many people in Franklin. And so at the end of the day, we're all still part of the same community. So we try to be civil in these conversations. We try to have as much information passed from one side to the other. And I think that everyone's looking out for the best interest of the town at the end of the day. I think, those that are in favor of the override have reasons to improve the schools and continue providing a solid education, and we certainly want that as well. But we have to consider the community as a whole as we make these decisions.
Mike Videira, how can people reach you and pick up signs?
So votenofranklin.com is the best place to find us and request signs and sign up for whatever it is that you want to do to help out.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Frank.
It's been a pleasure having you here.
Yeah.
And we want to remind people you can vote now today at the town clerk's office, or remember the date, June 11th, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Franklin High School Gymnasium. We wish you look into how this vote is going to affect you both financially and as a town of Franklin. And we hope to see you at the polls on Tuesday, June 11th. Thank you for watching, and feel free to forward any comments to 23 Hutchison Street, Franklin, Mass., either by phone, a letter, or email. Thank you.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.